Hey, this is Skullgirdle, and welcome to my top 10 releases of 2021. Goth adjacent, dark ambient, whatever. This is stuff that will generally be liked by goths and is part of the goth scene in some way, shape, or form. I don't get super hung up on genre, largely because I just have a hard time differentiating some of it. Some of the more granular definitions, but whatever. If you like it, you like it, listen to it. If you don't like it, don't listen to it. Seems pretty easy. Full disclosure though, I have 12 on here. It's not just 10. But I called it top 10 because that's what you do. Whatever, let's get to the music. First, no surprise, Actors, Acts of Worship. This is a great album. If you've listened to it, you know it's a great album. If you've listened to Actors, you can bet that this is probably a great album. It has that signature keyboard sound. They're mixed vocals, and by mixed vocals, I mean they have more than one person that sings. Yes, they have a lead singer, but that several people sing. It adds a really good texture to their albums, different feel. They have such a great blend of modern and 80s influence. There's some 90s influence. I swear to you guys, some of their keyboards make me think of Journey's Love Will Find You without sounding like Love Will Find You, because that would be weird, but I digress. Anyway, I'm not playing anything for you guys today because I don't want it to get blanked copyright. You know why. We had to stop with the DJs on Twitch. Everybody's gotten more strident about it once it's recorded. So, and I know I just said DJs on Twitch, but YouTube has pulled into that same thing where there's more copyright strikes. There's more just removing your music. They've gotten better at it and making blank spots in your videos, and I don't want those. So we're not doing that. Anyway, back to Actors. They are just really polished, really great production. Just worth every penny you spend on their merchandise. They're good live. They're good in the studio. They make good videos. Everything they do is really just well done, well thought out, and it's always Actors. You always know when you're hearing an Actors song without getting bored. And this album is no exception. I very highly recommend it. Well, I mean, it's on my top 10, so I highly recommend everything on the list. You understand. Next, we have a band that I discovered during the pandemic. Maybe early 2021. I can't even remember anymore. It's like a blur. Been in a pandemic for like 200 years at this point. 2021 was like 3 decades long. Anyway, this album came out during that time. Breath of fresh air. Yum. Delicious music. Hatbacks, I always think of them more as gothic rock, but this sounds a little bit more darkwave to me. It's an EP of 6 songs, and it definitely sounds like Hatbacks. They're modern goth music. I would say that this band is one of those that you're like, oh, that sounds like goth music. I don't think they sound like any other specific band. People like to compare. I don't generally compare. I try to listen to each band and each new album as its own entity. But if you like gothic music, you will probably like Hatbacks. This is a good bet. Good band. They're consistently good. I have 2 live albums. I got Cave on vinyl. That's like a big score to me because it sounds outstanding on vinyl. Really, really good band. This is Exile. I know I'm talking about everything they do. But some of these bands, that's kind of how it is. I like all the things they do. We got lucky with a few artists releasing. By we, I guess that's the royal we. I got lucky that some of my favorite artists released really good music this year. And some of my friends released really good music this year, which is always a relief if you have musician friends who release music. So let's move on. Next we have Push Button Press. I'm wearing this shirt. Hopefully you can't see too close because, yeah, this shirt is unfortunately stained. Shh. Anyway, Black Swan is a wonderful, wonderful release. It is, of course, well produced because that's kind of what I expect from Push Button Press. Like Actors, they're consistent, and the things about them are consistent are some of the things we love. Like, anyone with an interface or an analog recorder can make an album. That's fine. We love those too, but sometimes we love the ones that are more highly produced, and I I am one of those people. Excuse me, it is definitely allergy season in Texas right now. Also, what might be noted about Push Button Press, or what I find most notable about Push Button Press, is the lyrics. Jim Walker is, I think, a brilliant lyricist. So if you like to read the lyrics and you like to have things that you really have to think about while you're listening to really good music, solidly post-punk, a lot of influences there that you can hear, then you will love Black Swan. It's no slouch as far as lyrics go. God, did I really say that? Whatever. What I mean is that in a Push Button Press song, the lyrics feel like poetry. They could be read in a book without the song. Like a lot of lyrics, you're like, what the fuck is this? If you read it just the lyrics without knowing the song or the context, and that is not the case with Push Button Press. Again, the music sounds great, or it wouldn't be on this list, y'all. I just am a person who is a fan of lyrics, and you cannot beat Push Button Press. Black Swan consistently sounds great, and it feels great when you listen to the words. There's a little bit of dismal, dark stuff in there, but I mean, it's a goth genre album. Really good post-punk. I highly recommend Push Button Press. And the reason I'm saying that is because I haven't just been listening to this album. I made myself a CD of the 3 Push Button Press albums I have and just keep it on repeat in my car for a few days at a time. So, I mean, I don't live in my car, but, you know, driving to and from places. I drove to New Mexico for Christmas, and this is one of the albums that was in my car, and it never got old. That's the sign of a good album. All right. You'll notice that this is a band page, but it's Then Comes Silence, who are one of my favorite bands, like top 3 goth bands, for a reason. They put out 4 albums, and that's why it's on here, that I'm counting as one body of work. They released on the same day, and it's called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. I have to read, I hate to say it because I'm going to forget. Death, Famine, Pestilence, and War. They're covers. Each one has 4 covers on them, and they're really, really beautifully done. I particularly enjoy Christine and Killing Moon, but there's a bunch on there, and I didn't get bored with these. They're 4-song albums. Well, I guess it's 16 songs. Okay, fine. But really, it's one body of work to me. Then Comes Silence. Always, always amazing. And I include EPs. 4 songs or more can be on this list, because I saw my next album is Leathers, which is only 4 songs, and has almost a, synth pop, but I don't know genre well enough to say that. It's not dark goth sounding, but it's something that's really well loved by goths, and is put out by Shannon from Actors, so it sounds amazing. The vocals are tight, really, really well put together, and it doesn't sound just like Actors, which, yay. You gotta love it when somebody does a solo project that doesn't sound just like the band that they've been a part of for a while. A long time. Again, only 4 songs. Oh God, it's 5. Oh man. I'm gonna learn how to count one day. I don't know when that day's gonna be, so please don't rely on me for that. But you can see it's pretty popular here on Bandcamp. And it's, again, when it's 4 songs, it's not expensive. It's produced, even if it's not specifically goth, because I'm not sure it sounds goth enough to me, but whatever. One of our own. I feel like when somebody goes off and does a solo album and it comes out really great, it's like it's one of our own, part of the scene. Next, because this is getting long. Oh, here's another one that somebody who departed from their original band and came out and did a kick fucking ass album, Susie Sabotage, Postmodern Dystopia. This is it's a full-length album. It's really great. There's a place here or there where you can hear a little bit of Switchblade Symphony influence, and I think that with that vocal range and that monotone vocal style, I think that's where that comes from. But this is really, really nicely done. If I had to genretize it, I'd put it somewhere in dark wave and post-punk. I personally love the hybridization of the goth styles together. I think it's interesting. And the lyrics are, again, really fantastic, but this is postmodern dystopia. You're going to have that feeling of unrest, civil rights, feminism in its actual definition of equality for everyone or equity for everyone, which I'm trying to change over to equity from equality so that we make sure everyone has an equal chance. Anyway, again, this is somewhere in the post-punk and dark wave genre to me. Y'all can correct me if you want, but if you put a shitty comment just to be shitty, I'm going to delete it. You guys know that. You guys know that. All right, moving on. I can't believe I left these all messed up. Girlfriends and Boyfriends. I fucking love this album. This is one that I can't believe I didn't see it on anybody else's list. Again, it has kind of that 80s synth pop feel. You can feel that 80s influence. Again, it's its own little creature rising out of that, and whatever, I'm looking for the songs. Full-length album, as you can see. I think it came out in May. This one, I got it on LP. I just went ahead and bought it straight off on LP without having anything else of theirs in my collection. It came with a 7-inch, and I was like, woohoo! But I have played this one 20, 30, 40 times. I don't know. It's just really, really great. I would say that it sits dark wave synth pop, maybe. See, look at me. I'm like, oh, I don't care about the genre. I'm trying to help you a little bit. You can listen to all this shit for free on Bandcamp, and I will list out all of these links on Bandcamp for you so that you can see the albums. But I'm not putting them in any particular order because this list is not actually in any particular order. They're all my favorite. And I know I'm not going into them as deeply as I could be, but that's because I have 12 and I'm already at 12 minutes because I cannot shut up. Okay. Not surprising for me to have this on my list is Kamlon, circa 1983. These young people, I think they might be 17 and 18 now. I'm not sure. They're just graduating high school, but they have an 80s sound, but they have this vocals that are have an almost monotone feel to them that puts them in kind of a different place. And so they've mixed all this stuff together. They've mixed goth and they've mixed kind of almost 80s pop and almost, I think, some synth pop in there. And what they've come up with is something unique. And it's just absolutely worth the collection. Your collection, my collection, of course. And I got this on LP. So excited about the things I can get on LP because they're such short runs that if you're like, oh, I'll get it later, it's going to be hard to find. It's not that it costs a lot, because it might, you never know, but it can be hard to find. Anyway, so full-length album by Kamlon took the goth world by storm, and I feel like they delivered in this album. The production's great. The music is, I think, really attainable, and I just love it. I can listen to this album over and over, and I have listened to it several times, maybe times 10. Next is, it's always a pleasure when you have friends that put out a good album, and this is a good album. Again, on the production quality, there are a lot of albums that came out this year that just have this really great production quality. And I'm proud to say that Aunt of Sounds Like Winter is a friend of mine and also a talented musician, and Sounds Like Winter delivers. They, again, I keep saying delivers, whatever, so that's the word of the video. It's cool. But Sounds Like Winter, if you've ever heard a Sounds Like Winter song, you've heard a Sounds Like Winter song. You know that there is a heavy influence of Joy Division, mostly heard through the vocals. And I have to say that that's still in the album Fight the Stairs, but it doesn't sound like Joy Division. It sounds like Winter, because even with that vocal style, and that's not the only vocal style. They have two vocalists, Andy Lennon, who is also a lovely human being, and Aunt Bannister, both have great vocal styles. They're a little bit different, but they back each other up so well that they just kind of blended in there. This album, though, what I think one of my favorite things about Sounds Like Winter is that they take some heavy drum beats and some pretty heavy subjects. They are very much fighters of social injustice. And they put them into something that has this almost boisterous sound. They sound boisterous. And they always put a song like on the end. I say always, okay, fine, second full-length album that takes a kind of a left turn from the rest of the album and has an almost joyful sound. But if you go back and read those lyrics, they are fucking bleak. This shit is bleak. It kind of hits those of, oh God, because it's also personal. So much of what they write is so personal. Even if it's like a worldview, it's so personal. Even when it's about whatever book, like on their first album, they had Sticks and Stones. They had a song based on Animal Farm. And they managed to get that feeling, that Orwellian feeling to it, because Animal Farm written by George Orwell. And add bleakness, but still have that style that somehow feels boisterous. Some of that is in some of their drum patterns. They do use a live drummer. And some of it is in the guitar. The guitar has almost a 70s prog rock feel at points. Really, really well done. And such a pleasure to be sharing this as a real entry in my top 10 albums, because it's one of those albums, every time I listen to it, I'm like, why haven't I been listening to this more? I'm like, wait, what? You listened to this album like 30 times. Okay, fine, whatever. Why haven't I been listening to it more? And so it makes the list because it kicks 9 kinds of ass. All right, I don't even know what this... Oh, Cloud of Ravens. This one came out 2021, another kind of midnight. And while this is... I always think of, sorry for the royal we on that one, that makes no sense. I always think of Cloud of Ravens as a darkwave band, but they have added some serious guitar to this one, and I am here for it. I think this album is a really good progression of what this act is doing and where they're growing. And I love to see a band stretch themselves, and I don't know if it's trying something new or just adding something that really rounds out the album and makes it more full and makes an interesting release. And another thing I like, again, on a heavy lyrics kind of person that I am, is that some of their songs they sound very simple, but these guys are talking more about civil rights and just this side of protest songs in some of their lyrics, just throughout their catalog. And I love that if you read it, if you come from one place, you're going to think one thing about what they're writing. And if you come from a different place, you're going to think a completely different thing about their writing. And I find that engaging for me personally, because again, I like to sit down and read lyrics or listen to something, because I like to think. And the lyrics with this band make you think. They can get almost trance at some points in their sound overall, but I think in another kind of midnight, the adding of the guitar to a band that's just so very much sounds like darkwave to me gets them closer to gothic rock without turning their back on that original sound of that heavy darkwave. Really nice release, beautifully produced, great lyrics. I mean, Cloud of Ravens generally are going to give you a good release. And now we have a release that came out in December, so it could not have made the November lists, The Ending Nights, with Pedro from I Am the Shadow. I think Pedro Moda, if I'm correct. And this is a kick-ass darkwave project. I fucking love it. I've listened to it. It came out in December, and I've listened to it like 6, 7, 8 times. And while I haven't had as much time to fall in love with it as the others on this list, it deserves its spot here. This is a really great release that goes far enough away from the original I Am the Shadows music that it's new and fresh. And it's really worth a listen. It's great darkwave. And it's a full-length release. That's an odd color choice for the typeface on there. Green on a medium blue. Okay, whatever. It's not my art, so I don't get to choose the typeface color. But the ending nights, give it a shot. One more kick-ass project coming out of Portugal. And if you're like, really? You listen to Portuguese stuff? None. They're in my top 5 all-time goth bands. I Am the Shadow, Phantom Vision, Mort Psíquica, and now The Ending Nights. There are a few others that I can't remember right now, but if you like metal, Bizarro Locomotivo, black metal, except it's Noctifer. So yes, Portugal makes really great rock. And now for the last, but absolutely not even close to least, Daya Decay put out Evolutionary Anachronism. And this one is a little bit different. This is one that a lot of people would not call goth genre. I would call it experimental ambient. It's techno synth. And something that Daya does, there are no vocals. Well, I mean, there's like samples of bits and pieces out of media, but there's no lyrics written, no vocals written like that. This is, I don't know. It's hard to explain, obviously, because I'm stuttering all over myself. This I've listened to quite a bit. Really, really beautifully put together. The songs all are different enough from each other, but this is experimental. This is experimental techno, I think personally, at its finest. This is just such a good release, and I'm not really sure how to explain it because it goes from ambient to something that's like noise driven and is designed to wake you up. And then it goes into something that'll be really sweet. And then it goes into something that sounds heavy techno, like almost EDM. And because it is an experimental album, and some of the songs can be kind of long, and it has quite a few songs, I think. Yeah, it's got quite a few. It's not a short album. Daya has taken the time to lay down many different thoughts and feelings, but it sounds in some cases like mini movie soundtracks. Like you can feel a whole story in a song on most of these songs. And quite honestly, I know people are like, oh, movie soundtrack, who cares? I mean, you might. But this actually sounds like it was written for sometimes maybe sci-fi, sometimes maybe anime. And if you know anything about anime soundtracks, they're often quite good. And they are very popular in Japan for a reason. This just steps kind of outside of what you think of as techno and kind of shows you some of what techno can be. I highly recommend listening to this. At least listen to it on Bandcamp. And if you want music, this is perfect for background music because as much as it's good to listen to in the dark with your eyes closed, and yes, I have done that, as background music, it can wake you up right when you're not expecting it. But seriously, this comes from Daya Decay, who is a member of a group called Headless Blood Idol. That is an experimental electronic music group. They're small. But if this is the kind of stuff that's coming out of there, absolutely worth a listen. If you like experimental music, and if you like music with no lyrics, give it a shot. You won't be disappointed. This is a fucking amazing album. So that is my top releases of 2021. I love them all. I'm not going to put them in order of best to best. I mean, it's top 10. There's a lot of shit that came out. If you guys have been watching Bandcamp, and it has exploded in the last couple years, largely due to Bandcamp Fridays and the ability to support your favorite artists in a slightly more meaningful way. But Bandcamp is really, they're in a good place right now, and I would suggest taking advantage while that site is still there and still made for musicians and for the smaller people before, God, I hope it never YouTubes. You know what I mean? Like SoundCloud and YouTube, where everybody gets fucked over. Anyway, yes, these are all on Bandcamp because that is where I get 95% of my music and almost all of my goth music, my new goth music. So hey, thanks for watching. Until next time.